Hello everyone. So today we will just discuss first about what we have learned in this subject till now. So previously we talked about the requirement of electromagnetic theory. We said that there are certain physical phenomena which electromagnetic theory will explain and circuit theory will be inadequate for these purpose. So one can think of electromagnetic theory as some superset of circuit theory. Okay, and electromagnetic theory is also indispensable for if you are going to study microwave, radar, antenna, fiber optics, and so on. The primary goal of these different areas is somehow harness electromagnetic energy and put that one into better use. So electromagnetic is one sense deal with generation, propagation and radiation of electromagnetic energy and light. We will see later that light and electromagnetic waves are one and the same, and this union of electromagnetic theory and light was achieved by Maxwell equation by Maxwell. We have also studied about Coulomb's law, which gives us the force exerted by one charged particle onto another charged particle, and we have seen that the form of this force, it requires two parameters to specify. One is its magnitude, which is amount of the force that is exerted by the particle on another particle, as well as we have to specify the direction along this force act, along which force act. So the force is the quantity which is slightly different or radially different from charge. Okay, so when we talk about electricity and magnetism, we deals with certain kind of quantity. For example, we say that if charge Q is present, capital Q is present, another charge small q is there, will experience a force on it. If the charge Q kept here, the force is in this direction. But if I took the same charge and put it down here, the force is in this direction. Okay, that's what Coulomb's law tells us, but we can pretend before the charge was placed here, the force was waiting to happen, so that when the charge is placed, the force is actually felt. The concept of force defined by every point in space is called force field. So force field or a field in general is a quantity which is defined for all position. So the quantity like q1 and q2 are single value, but when we talk about variable distance r and this force which is function of this variable distance, the force will become a field. So field is a quantity, and it is a physical quantity that take a different value at different points. It will have different value at this point and different value at this point. Okay, so commonest example is force field. There are plenty of other example. For example, suppose this was the earth, and there is object suspended over, means above the earth. So this object which is placed above the earth over here will experience some force, and the force is due to gravity. Now there is gravitational field, namely a force waiting to happen which is surrounding the earth. So gravitational field is basically surrounding the earth, and it is waiting to be happen. Okay, in all that direction it is trying to pull the things towards the earth. Suppose object is here, so it will get pulled down in this direction. If object is here, it will pull down in this direction, and if the object comes all the way till here, it will get pulled down in this direction. So this is another field, and it is called as gravitational field. Similarly, you can have field which is simply the location of field. So every point has coordinate x and y. If it has height, it has coordinate z. Now if we define some point, suppose this point, and let us say that center of the earth is the origin, then we can draw a line from center of earth to any point, that point would be x, y and z. X, y and z. Now suppose we attach to x direction, and the direction along x I denote in this way, x hat. I put a little caret on the top of the quantity. What I mean by that is, take this direction and give it magnitude 1. So it has no magnitude. Its magnitude is just 1, but it has direction. And the magnitude is sitting in this x. Magnitude is sitting in x and direction is sitting in x card, which is in the same direction as of your x-axis. Similarly, magnitude is inside y and direction is inside x card, and magnitude is inside z and direction is inside x card. So this defined a particular direction. It is distance from the center of earth to wherever we are measuring. Now this is 2 is a vector field because it depends on where we are measuring. Suppose if I am measuring at some another point, so it will have different value of x, y and z, and because it have different value of x, y and z, it is different vector. So this too is a vector field. Okay, now not only one can have vector field, you can also have scalar field. So for example, if you look at newspaper, it will show you the map of India, and it will tell you what the temperature at different points in the country. This map showing you isothermal thumb says that this is 34 degree, this is 32 degree, this is 30 degree. So this is actually defining a scalar field. It is saying that every point in this subcoordinate, you can associate a temperature, and the scalar field is temperature. At this point the temperature is 34 degree. At this point temperature is 32 degree, and at some point in this line the temperature is 30 degree. Like temperature, you can have many other kind of scalar fields such as pressure, temperature itself, and a well known scalar field that we are going to study in this course is electrostatic potential. So these all are scalar field. The difference between scalar field and vector field is only one thing. Scalar field have magnitude, they have number, but they do not have direction. Vector field not only have numbers, they also have a direction. All of these, whether it is scalar field or vector field, the quantity we are looking at, we are describing, must be physical quantity. So we can't say that the color of car is going to be a scalar field. That is very arbitrary kind of quantity. So it do not come under this kind of description. Okay, so if it is a physical quantity we are describing, that quantity to be field. We can write equation for it, we can solve those equation, we can predict that these fields will do. Okay, now I start talking about vector field, but I have not said what is vector. That is because you people are supposed to have learned all about vector earlier, but let me revise. Okay, so in term of fact that the force require both magnitude as well as direction to specify, whereas charge can be specified only by giving its value number. So the quantity that requires both magnitude and direction is known as vectors. Okay, and we denote vectors in our handwritten note by using a capital letter. Okay, to denote a vector, then we place a small arrow. With this arrow, it is different from just a capital letter. If you are just having A, it is different from this A with arrow. If you don't write an arrow, what it mean? What it is? It is scalar. It specify by number. Whereas you write an arrow, that becomes vector. So this is the handwritten notation. Sometime a different notation is used in which you take a capital letter and instead of putting arrow, you put a bar. Okay, so you put a bar on it, not arrow. Sometime you can see some people putting underbar but that usage is quite rare. In text and printed material, you would find vector denoted by a bold face, okay, or a bold print with a capital letter. So here you have seen that f, vector f, which could represent a source or some another vector quantity in printed is printed in bold. Okay, so we also denote unit vector. We will discuss what unit vector later on. So unit vector can be denoted by putting hat or a caret on the top of letter like this. Okay, so these letter could be small letter. For example, this x hat indicates unit vector in the direction of x coordinate, and this n hat denotes a unit vector in the direction of n. Or sometime you can find notation by just putting a bold small letter and then putting a subscript. Subscript indicate the direction of component. So for example, this AR, A indicates the unit vector and R indicates the direction of this unit vector. Similarly, you will also find sometime UX written with U standing for unit vector and X small case letter bold, and X stands for direction of vector along which this vector is acting. Now vector is defined graphically by using two components, 2 points. One is tail, that is origin of vector, and the other is head, the final point of vector. So this for example is vector. You have distinction between a vector which is directed in this way. Now if I draw another vector in this way, okay, so these two vectors will be different from each other. Now you can also see that we can perform algebra with these vectors. Let me just point out, in the graphical representation of vector, the length of line stands for magnitude of vector. Okay, so length of line will indicate magnitude of vector. So if I have a short arrow, line with an arrow, that would indicate small magnitude of vector compared to this one. Okay, now next we will see some difference between scalar and vector quantity. The first most difference is scalar quantity will have magnitude but no direction, whereas vector quantity will have both magnitude and direction. Scalar quantity is one dimensional quantity, whereas vector quantity is 1, 2 or 3. It can be any of 3. Any change in scalar quantity will just change its magnitude, whereas any change in vector quantity will change either its direction or magnitude or even both of them. Scalar quantity can't be resolved exactly because it can't be resolved since it has same value regardless of direction, whereas vector quantity can be resolved by using sine cosine of adjacent angle. Any mathematical operation carried out on scalar quantity will provide you scalar value only. Okay, the only condition when you will obtain is if you multiply scalar with vector, okay, then only you will get vector quantity. Okay, whereas in case of vector mathematical operation, the dot product of two vectors will give you scalar quantity, whereas addition, subtraction and cross product will give you vector quantity. Okay, and the example of scalar quantity is like temperature, pressure, density, energy. An example of vector quantities are like force, weight, acceleration, velocity, displacement. These are example of vector quantities. Okay, so now we will start. We want to consider addition and subtraction of vectors. So we will come to different operation with vectors later. So we will come to different operations with vector later on. So first we will see how can we add two vector, something that is familiar to you from your undergraduate study. So you have two vector and how to add them, you know that. So this is just a recipe of adding. Okay, I will not go into justification how you can obtain this one. I hope that will be reading upon, depend, you can read in your reference book or you can recall from your early study. You start with vectors. Okay, two vector that we need to add. So how you can add two vectors? You are having suppose vector A which is pointing in horizontal in this way, and you have certain magnitude attached with this vector A. You also have a vector B which is pointing in this direction, which is given by this blue line. Okay, and it will also have certain magnitude which is given by this length of line. So now what is resultant, or what is the sum of these two vectors? Now before we go into sum, you have to understand that how you get this vector B. Okay, so vector, when you have performed sum or difference of these vectors, you have to define for a common origin. Okay, a common origin for two vectors, suppose A and B, I am taking as this tail. This is common origin. So the tail at this point will be common point for A as well as for B. So which means that the blue line vector B should be actually defined parallelly over here. Okay, this is the second two vector which are acting, and the vector C, the red color, is the resultant of A and B. A and B are acting vectors and this is resultant. But to calculate this resultant, or to calculate the sum of two vectors, what I have done is to take these vectors B and I take this vector B and translate it parallelly to get this vector B, which is same as this vector, but this vector has its tail at the end point of A. Okay, here. So this is the first recipe. You can actually translate a vector in parallel plane that you want, and the two vectors are mathematically equivalent. However, physically they may not be equivalent. For example, suppose if I am having an object, okay, and I apply force along this direction. So you can see that this is the starting point of the force, this is the end point of the force, and let me assume that this vector is making contact with this object at this point. Okay, so this is vector that is acting at particular point. Now mathematically you can represent this vector by a line with this as a origin. You can represent it like this. This is the end point that could be a vector. Okay, now you can translate it parallelly. Mathematically a vector is equivalent to this vector. Okay, both are equivalent mathematically, but physically this vector is not touching this object anywhere. Even you can again mathematically draw this vector downward. So mathematically again these two vectors are equivalent, but physically this is also not touching object anywhere. So the reason why I want to specify this is because we sometimes get carried away by mathematical operation. Okay, you can actually translate a vector parallelly along a plane, but then you have to always constantly remember that these vectors are not physically equivalent. However, mathematically you can translate them. You can add, you can subtract, and resultant vector will always be correct. Okay, so that aspect in mind, you have a vector B which has originally defined from a common point of two vectors A and B, has been parallelly translated over here. So we have parallelly translated vector B. Now I want to find out resultant of A and B. This is the second step of recipe. The first step is to parallelly translate a vector, and the second step is now to add two vectors. How do we add two vectors? Now the sum of two vector, which is in this case is sum of A and B, is this C. and this is given by a vector which has its origin at the tail of A and its head is attached with head of B. So you can see this red arrow goes from tail of A at all the way till head of B. Okay. I have said that you can translate a vector parallelly and this will be mathematically equivalent. So you can see that over here as well you can take the vector A and I can leave vector B as it is, and now I can take vector A and translate parallelly to get this vector which is labeled here as A. Because mathematically this vector and this vectors are equivalent, so I have translated this vector parallelly such that the tail of A is at the head of B. Okay, so its arrow is in this direction. Now I have one tail here and one head here, but you can actually now join the tail of B to one head here. Okay, you can join it, one head is here, one head is here, but you can join this tail of B over here. So this is resultant of A plus B, which is also sum of vector A and B. Now this is actually what? B plus A. But please note carefully that this vector is same as this vector, because we have seen that two vectors are mathematically equivalent if we parallelly translate them in a plane. So this is law of triangle addition of two vector, and this is something that you will have to practice a little bit to get familiar with this sum or addition of two vector, because we will be looking at not just two vector, we will be looking at add more than two vector. Now how do I add more than two vector? You do the recipe pairwise, that is, if I have more than two vectors, suppose I am having three vectors A, B and C, and first I find the sum of A and B, then I find the resultant of the sum with C, and I will keep doing this until I get the right answer, means the total sum of all three. So you have a black line which is representing A. Here is its tail, here is its end or head of vector A. To this vector I want to add the another vector B. Okay, so B is this blue line vector which is now added. So to get resultant A plus B, so this A plus B is this red line over here. Okay, so I hope this is all right. We have a vector A, you place the tail of vector B on the head of A, then you draw a line from tail of A to the head of B, so as to get the resultant A plus B. Okay, once you have this resultant A plus B, now I want to add A plus B vector to a different vector called C. Now this C is this orange line vector over here. I am going to add A plus B and C now. How do I do that? So I have one vector A plus B. If C is not originally over here at this place, I have one vector A plus B, and if C is not originally at this point, you can translate C somehow. If C was a vector that was defined elsewhere like this, so you can parallelly translate the vector until C tail reaches the end head of A plus B. Okay, so now you can forget about A and B. You can simply concentrate on two vector A plus B and C. I have A plus B vector and C vector. You now draw a line which go from tail of A plus B till head of C. Okay, so this way you can add three vectors, and this green line or green vector is the resultant of or sum of three vectors. So I hope this process is convincing. You can also show that the vector addition is the commutative as well as associative by looking at this a plus b and this b plus a, both are equal. So you have a plus b which will also lead to the same vector c, or a plus b which will lead to the same vector c, and even b plus a which will also lead to the same vector c, which are mathematically equivalent but parallelly translated version of this solid red line. So vector addition is commutative. To show vector addition is associative, what you can do is a plus b is this, and then a plus b plus c, you will get this. Again, if I want b plus c, you will get this vector. Then if you add this b plus c in this a, you will again get same vector. So this way addition is associative as well as commutative. Till now you have seen the addition of two vectors. We also need to subtract a vector. We also need to subtract one vector from another vector. So how you will subtract it? To subtract b from a, simply reverse the direction of b to obtain minus b and add it to a. So for that, suppose this is there. So this a is there and b is there. To get a minus b, you just revert b in just same opposite direction. It will be pointing in the direction opposite to that which is this b is pointing. Okay, but remember that the magnitude is positive quantity. So vector b, which is defined for this point along this direction, has the same length as this vector minus b. So both are having same magnitude, only except that vector b is pointing in direction just exactly opposite direction. Now add two vector a and minus b. The tail of vector minus b is at the head of vector a. Then you draw another line from tail of vector a to the head of minus b. So now this another vector d is subtraction of a, means it's an addition of a and minus b, or you can say it is a minus b. I hope that you are convinced now that the vector can be added and subtracted. Now if you are asking to think about how to multiply two vectors, we will have to wait for that for some time. Okay, we don't have really need to multiply at this point. We will wait for some time before we tackle subject of multiplication. So far we have talked about vector in a very general way. We draw some lines, then we added lines to another line and we found the resultant line. So we did all these things in graphical method of doing vector analysis and vector algebra. Okay, now you might keep doing graphical method of vector analysis, but then you will soon tire yourself out if the number of vectors involved is more than 3. You are tired of. Okay, for example, in certain problem you will be seeing that there will be charge which are say 10 to 20 placed around in a plane. If you want to add all these resultant forces because of these individual charges, you will be adding 20 such forces, maybe of different magnitude and different directions. Okay, so it will become tiresome if you want to carry out graphical analysis. Through this graphically analysis you can just visualize how the vector would look, but if you do analysis by using graphical method, it will be very tiresome. So you need an algebraic method for handling this. This algebraic method of handling vectors can be accomplished when we introduce coordinate system. So what is coordinate system will do? They will help you to specify the location in space by number. So basically what will happen, one can quantify vector by numerical value in the given coordinate. You can quantify it with numerical value, means you can provide it some numbers. Okay, now this is the great advantage. A vector which could be oriented in random direction in a space is now been described by set of numbers. If you also find out how to add and subtract with just these numbers, then We can not only do this in algebraic exercise, we can also give it to the computer and input this to computer so that the whole computation can be performed. So you will actually save a lot of time if you are able to associate number of vector and coordinate system. Then it will be very useful. Okay, so this coordinate system will transmit from graphical to algebraic description of vector. Okay, so before we proceed further, I want to clarify one very important aspect. Coordinate systems are independent. Coordinate system are independent of vectors, in the sense that if I change my coordinate system, the number associated with vectors will change, but the vector will not change. However, the number that is associated will only change. Okay, so that is for today's lecture. Thank you.